Hey now! The Hey Now Howard podcast, first and only fan podcast dedicated to the king of all media, Howard Stern, and all things Howard Stern Show. I'm Daniel Coyne.
My name is Tyler Cortad. Today we're going to be talking about Benjy. Dun, dun, dun.
He's as bad as can. He knows he's the best. This is Beto. He's as bad as can. He knows he's the best. This is Beto. He's as bad as.
Welcome back to the Hey Now Howard podcast, broadcasting to you from Los Angeles, California. Today we're going to be talking about Benjy Bronk. First, I want you to go ahead and follow us on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We're also on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. Is that it?
Follow us. That's it for now.
Daniel's our advertising man. He's in control of all this
right.
stuff. I am an idiot. And I don't understand any of this and how it works. So I leave it to him.
We also broadcast live, but no one's come to see us yet. We just sit in our apartments alone, and
You know, I had high hopes for Benjy being our first guest, but after today's podcast and what we have to say about him, not looking likely.
that's right. Today we are going to be talking about Benjy Bronk,
Yeah,
an OG member of the Stern Show, but not necessarily
the most
always
popular.
in the best standing
I
for such an original member of the cast.
Sure. I gotta say, I was never one to pile on and hate on Benjy at first. I kind of like Benjy. I was a fan of Benjy, especially back in the Artie days, whenever Benjy would be, more featured and in studio. But I liked him. I thought he brought a lot to the table. I liked him being in studio at the time. Obviously you don't get a lot of insight into how the inner workings of the back office, but from what you hear in interviews with Artie and other guys, that Benjy wrote a lot for the show. He was an integral part of a lot of the comedy bits that they produced, and so he was a big part of that. So I kind of have to go with what the main people were saying, that Benjy was an integral part of the show. So based off of that, and in the early days, I was a fan of Benjy.
Sure. So he came on the show in 1998 as an intern. Came from Penn State, and still to this day, they still can't figure out exactly how he qualified as an intern, because he was in his late 20s at the time.
Sure.
And then it was only 2 short years after that, 2000, he was given a studio seat. So at the time, there was Jackie was still on the show. Artie was just coming on. So they had multiple studio seats, different from what they have now. But for a guy that's 2 years in the show, he didn't necessarily have a vocal role all the time, but he had a microphone in front of him and was in studio 2 years after being an intern. So
yeah, what do you think he did to? Because that's kind of unheard of. Like, you hear of staff inner workings now. That seems crazy for somebody to only be on the show for that long and then to get into the studio. So what do you think he did to actually earn that seat in such a short period of time?
Well, so you'll remember when he first came on, one of the first times that he got on microphone, he was talking about how he saw Howard as how he saw an aura around him, and he saw him as like a godlike figure.
Sure.
So right off the bat, established that he's a weirdo.
Yes, and how
But
everybody
also
liked that.
made it funny.
Yeah.
It was an entertaining bit, and that maybe just captured Howard right off the bat, because 2 years later, seat in the studio.
Right.
And I don't think we've ever seen an accelerated path that way.
Well, especially because, it's not like he came from stand-up. You see Jackie, who's obviously an accomplished stand-up, Artie, an accomplished stand-up and actor, and just overall comedian. They were in the studio in those types of chairs because they've proven themselves in the entertainment industry beforehand. Benjy really, I didn't really have a lot to go off of coming into the studio. I just find that remarkable. So there had to be something that Howard saw, right off the bat to get him in there, because, it did not take long.
And the reason we're talking about him mainly is because he continues to maybe rely on that talent that Howard saw 21 years ago, because always a point of conflict, always kind of a pain in the ass, but yet still collecting a paycheck, still working 3 days a week, mocking or working the same schedule as Howard and Robin, whereas everyone else pretty much works an extended schedule.
Yeah, like a 5-day regular work week. So it's like,
so there's talent there.
Yeah, I'm trying to just figure this out. So let's look at the trajectory of Benjy. So yeah, he comes on there, and then he finds his rhythm in the studio.
So 2000, he's given the studio seat.
Right.
Only 1 year later, 2001, Jackie leaves. And so he's still in studio, but even a bigger role. Continues in studio. 2006, Howard moves to Sirius. Still continues in that role.
Right.
And it wasn't until 2 years ago, in 2017, that he was quote-unquote kicked out of the studio, which we can get into about the inner workings of that. Was it behind the scenes? Was it new people co-managing the show, being the GM of the show, influencing that?
Sure.
But it took a very long, and he's still influential even though he's outside of the studio. They still reference him often. He'll get on Gary's mic. He'll contribute still. So there still is the talent, but so then we can also look throughout the years. The Anthony Weiner press conference, very funny stuff. He did Roger Goodell press conference.
Yeah.
That he came in after the Ray Rice situation in the NFL, where he's yelling out, "Don't take me to the elevator."
Sure.
After the security was dragging him out.
Benjy was, and he still is in a sense, but I don't see it as much. But he was extremely fearless when it came to these bits. I mean, he would go balls to the wall and go for it in these bits, and that's probably what Howard appreciated whenever it came to these things. And it really was funny, and he is funny. And you hear staff talk about that. Like, he is a funny guy, and these bits, speak for that as well. But yeah, I'll let you continue on in the timeline of Benjy. But you can see how these start to become few and far between. But But for a while there, he was hitting, as Bo was hitting them out of the park.
Yeah, continued to have bits produced, and they moved to Sirius in 2006. He stays in the studio, but things start to sour more and more as he continues to be late, which is a huge deal with Howard. Howard's very old school with his work ethic, and Benjy's working 3 days a week, which is he's one of the only staff members that has that schedule, but still continues to be late and becomes a huge issue. He's late in late 2017, and that's the final straw. He gets kicked out of the studio. Still has some awesome bits in between there. Perez Hilton fingers him in between.
Yeah, with the finger.
He dated a really hot girl, Elisa, whatever, Jordana.
Yeah.
She was super hot. I'm sure he would have never gotten her if he wasn't on the show. The Anthony Weiner press conference, Roger Goodell, and I'm sure he's one of the top contributors when it comes to shooting instant messages to Howard and contributing to jokes on the show, but also notoriously doesn't go to writers' meetings, doesn't participate in the pre-show, shows up, even if he's on time for his schedule, it's not participating in the pre-production. So has basically been resting on his talent for a long time, and I guess has his talent now run thin here as we land late 2019?
I think so. I think so just in the sense when you look at the output of the other staff members' work compared to Benjy's at this point. Whenever you look at Benjy's schedule and where Benjy's at now, like obviously there could be things that we don't know about that Benjy produces that he does, but from what we gather, I mean, when you look at the output of a Mamet or a Steve Nowicki or a Salin Richard, they seem to be cranking out bits nonstop, prank phone calls, man on the street interviews, characters, impressions, Brent even like having his whole storyline. I don't see that from Benjy. You know what I mean? I don't see that anymore. I think that Benjy kind of lost his way a little bit. He kind of got stuck in these this whole persona of being a pain in the ass, and I'm sure he really is a pain in the ass, but yeah, he's kind of stuck in this thing now where like it's not really producing a lot of bits for the show anymore. So yeah, I don't think that Benji's kind of keeping up with the rest of the staff at this point.
And now the next question becomes, how long do you think he'll be on the staff? Do you think he will make Howard's retirement?
Yes. I don't know if it's necessarily deserved, but yeah, I think he'll end up making it. Well, it depends. So I guess the question that needs to be asked before this is, who is the reason that Benji is out of the studio? Is it really only coming from Howard? And yeah, that's debatable because we can obviously get into does Marcy Turk have an influence that if Benji makes it in the studio, because he was late. I'm sure there's probably a very limited tolerance policy for being late into the studio for the show. So yeah, I guess it depends on the influence of who is he in the studio or not. That will probably take into effect if he is going to be actually fired. Howard's pretty loyal, so it's tough for me to say that Howard's going to fire him in the next year and a half after everything that they've been through.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar, Marcy Turk is the COO of the show. She's not talked about often. You won't hear her on the wrap-up show. You won't hear her on the regular show, but she's an influential figure. How influential is she? That's up for debate on shows like this. And I guess not a lot of other people care besides us and Reddit trolls.
Yeah,
but
right.
She's
Get after us, Reddit trolls. We're here.
That's right. She's considered an influential figure for bringing things back towards a PC culture and back towards the center on the Stern Show. And ultimately, maybe she was the kind of GM figure that made the decision to pull Benji out of the studio. Howard talked about it for years, how he should be doing it. And Howard has talked about, even though he talks a tough game, at the end of the day, he doesn't want to pull the trigger, especially with staff decisions. So maybe she was the influential figure to finally get him out of the studio. What do you think?
So I do think that Howard's main focus is creating the best show that he could possibly create. Now, if he thought that Benji was an integral part of making, if Benji being in studio would make the best version of the show that they could make, I don't think that Benji goes. So I guess that lies in another question. As an audience member, do you miss Benji in the studio? Do you care? Do you even notice? Like, did it change anything for you?
No, not me personally.
Me either. So it's basically,
if he is writing jokes, then he can still do that and instant message from the other room.
Right. I mean, there was a funny bit where they would do the Benji vortex. So if Benji would start to speak up, and then they would get nervous because they started to go down this weird path. Because if they bring any subject up to Benji and Benji starts to talk about it, Benji will go off into a tangent about 100 other things before they know it. They're not even talking about the subject they originally wanted to. And that's just Benji in a nutshell. Nothing stays on topic. So Fred obviously created that Benji vortex and that drop, which was great. But I think that kind of ran its course too, as like that bit got old, because that just became the running shtick where it's like, at what point is that worth keeping Benji in the studio just for this?
Yeah. So what's making it funny is the fact that he's not interesting.
Right.
So that can't be sustainable for too long.
Sure. It's that he's not interesting, and that Benji,
not interesting, but he just runs his course and gets old quickly.
Well, he's just a pain in the ass. Like we all know people in our lives that you have those people like, hey, do you want to run to the store with me real quick? I can pick you up in 5 minutes. You have that friend that will be like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then that's the end of the phone call. We're into the text messages. Then you also have that one friend who's like, okay, well, how long are we going to be? And if you're going to be a little bit late, then I need to be back by this time. And it's a cold outside. Should I wear? They're obviously sending you 100 messages, and it turns into a big fucking thing. That's Benji. Benji's that friend or that person in your life. After a while, you put up with it. It's kind of funny for a little bit if you talk about it with other friends, but it's a pain in the ass. And I was wondering for a while, I was like, is this just shtick that Benji's doing, or is this actually Benji? And I've come to the conclusion now that that's just fucking Benji. He's a pain in the ass, and it's kind of like after a while you're just like, all right, fuck it, man, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, I think it started out as shtick, and then it's become so much a part of everything that he does that it really has become every part of him being in the building. Even if he's not on air, he's fucking around with them to the fact of maybe it'll get on air because he's acting so weird.
Yeah. Oh, that LA. Oh, God. I mean, we can get into this now. I don't know if you want to, but his bits
let's get into it.
His fucking bits that he brought to LA, like, were cringeworthy beyond belief, dude. I wanted to fucking kill myself whenever I was listening to this. It was terrible. Like, not even terrible, like, to the...
So please explain.
Oh, I don't even know if I want to. I almost feel offensive talking about the bit, let alone, like, fucking... let me think. But Benji in LA, whenever his first bit that he had, whenever he was running around the bar, like Howard was pissed at him because he didn't even record the fucking thing, but he was just running around the bar like an asshole, getting his
they did
workout
record
in.
on video for a minute long.
I did
it was
see
terrible.
Yeah, it was terrible. I don't even understand what it was, and the manager yelled at him. That was the only funny part of the bit, and then it cut out right before they actually got in trouble. There was that. That wasn't the main event. That was a little appetizer for fully capable Benji, which, again, made me want to fucking die.
Probably his worst bit ever.
I couldn't even believe... I guess that this is a character that he created years and years ago. It did not age well. And but Will said it best. They gave Benji gave him like a couple ideas, and then Will pretty much came out and said it was like, look, we gave you time to come up with bits. You clearly didn't put a lot of time and effort into these bits. You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty much what I got from this. But yeah, Benji was just a man on the street, and he played a mentally ill, handicapped person.
Simple Jack.
Played a simple Jack type of person,
inspired type character,
and would just find people. I guess he found a guy that looked like Snoop Dogg, and he would call him Snoop Dogg, and then like start yelling obscenities at them. But I don't even know how to describe this without feeling like an asshole.
Semi-racist.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, so anyway, the bit was fucking terrible. It wasn't funny at all. I don't know if anybody in the studio was laughing, but it was awful. It was a terrible, terrible bit. And I was like, dude, Benji, this is like, Howard even said he really didn't even fucking want you to come to LA. You could have came up with something like to actually prove your worth at this point, and that's what you came up with. And it's like, you piece of shit.
Well, his other bits that he proposed that didn't get on the air were dumpster diving and Beverly Hills and
sure
knocking on Beverly Hills random people's doors and announcing himself as a new celebrity neighbor. So
yeah,
also terribly bitch bits as well.
Right? It's like, I know Will was right, like to be like this is just, you know what I mean? They had the OJ thing, and he's like, I think that's offensive. Did he say that was offensive or like that was insensitive?
Yeah, he didn't want to participate in that.
But he went on. Fully capable Benji was insanely insensitive and whatever you want to call it. Like, but he didn't want to do the OJ thing. It's just clearly he was being lazy. You know what I mean? He's just being a lazy piece of shit.
Well, if he's different, then he can be talked about and maybe end up on the show, which he does a lot, and now we're talking about him. So maybe that's the end goal the whole time.
I guess, but what a fucking weird way to go, man. Just like do some fucking work. And I'm sure he does. Like, I don't know. Like, we obviously don't know the kind of work that he does, but from what I gather,
does he?
I don't think so. I don't know. Like, I don't see it. I really don't see it.
We should get hired.
Yeah, right? This is all a ploy for us to take Benji's fucking spot.
We're sending this resume in.
Yeah, we'll split Benji's salary, so don't worry about it. We'll just take half, and then Dan will take half.
Come on, Marcy.
Ooh, like it's up to her.
It is.
Fred's running the whole show. Fred, look us up.
Hi, my Fred. We're going to do a Fred episode soon. If you guys have some show topic ideas, send them in. We have our intern working 24/7, taking your calls, emails, Oh, jeez. How unprofessional. I got an alert about Sidney Crosby.
How do you do?
He's giving a gift away to an Army vet. How nice of him.
That's the, it's not even a goal update. It's a fucking...
Oh, no. He just has a heart of gold. We're from Pittsburgh.
John Hine. Hit him with the Hine.
John likes the Steelers.
Sure does.
Pittsburgh guy. We've gotten off topic.
Yeah.
We were talking about Benjy.
See how easy it is
Benjy
to get
went
off
to
topic
Penn
with
State.
Benjy?
Penn State's near us.
It is.
Also,
Well-
Benjy appeared in 3 Sharknadoes.
Yeah, I feel like we're doing his eulogy at this point.
This may be his eulogy show.
I know. I mean, it's funny, though. We're doing an episode on Benjy, and it's very easy to get off topic. Benjy. And I'm also running out of ideas to talk about. Benjy. Yeah, like this. I feel like this episode is going to be fucking 30 minutes long because Benjy.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, we're going to do like a Robin episode, Fred, Gary.
But yeah. I'm just, okay, so we'll start gearing this back up again for Benjy, but I'm just trying to think.
You have some questions for me?
I have a couple questions for you. And
Fire
I'll answer
away.
them too. Because I don't really have an answer already queued up for myself.
Please answer your own questions.
I'm trying to figure out this. What does Benjy bring to the show that we know of as an audience member? In studio, out of studio, whatever. What does Benjy bring to the show besides distraction from whatever focal point they're trying to stay on? Can you think of anything?
I'm sure he's a good writer for years, but I guess he doesn't need to be in the studio. Which I don't mean to totally just agree with. I mean, I guess it was cool he was there back in the day, and he was there back when Artie was there and Jackie. And I mean, again, going back to what we discussed earlier, from going from an intern, 2 years later you're in studio, and then you remained there for 16 or 17 years. The guy's obviously got some talent, but this LA trip recently really kind of put a highlight exactly on what you were talking about, where maybe the talent that he had has now caught up in the other staff members who have equal talent but are also working way harder.
Sure.
And he's not involved in as many storylines, and now that he's not in studio, he's not on mic as much, obviously. And it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. So now when he does come back in and they justify expensing him for the week, flying him out, expecting him to contribute not only on a regular level but elevated level, being out on location in LA. It was a huge show, one of their biggest shows in years, and it was just a massive shit show.
Yeah.
Which I guess ended up being the most entertaining bit than he would have produced.
Right.
Was us laughing at how terrible it was.
Maybe that was part of the bit.
But my question to you is he too out in the spotlight for them to fire? So if he goes away, well, we should do a whole episode on the people that the Stern Show has made disappear, because they will make someone disappear quickly and you won't be thinking of them much, and next thing you know, what happened to Lisa G?
Right.
And then she's gone for 2 years.
Exactly.
Next thing you know.
Scott the engineer, gone.
Is he gone?
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Oh, shit.
I think so, according to Reddit. But yeah, I think he is gone. And there was like a riff after his wife died. Again, all this is just conjecture, and nobody really knows the truth. Even on Scott's Twitter, he addressed some people that were like, kind of accusing Howard. It was like, the reason you left the show because Howard didn't do this or that in regards to your wife's funeral or your wife's death, or didn't contribute to the funding. So there was like some, and he actually addressed it and was like, that I'm not basically saying, don't believe everything you read or don't read. I don't know. It was very misleading and confusing, but it basically saying don't believe everything you read. But yeah, there's definitely a part of that where people that leave the show, there's always a weird mystery because it's not talked about on a show where everything's talked about. So it's strange. So yeah, if Benjy were to be fired, I don't know if it would be this big, party farewell, firing where he leaves and there's like this big episode about it.
Be that. No.
Yeah, it would just be all of a sudden you just don't hear from Benjy for you won't think, like you said, you won't think about it for a month. 2 months go by. It's like, oh man, I haven't heard from Benjy in a while. Next thing you know, he's on John the fucking Stutterer's podcast talking about how much he fucking hates Howard. So it's weird like that. So and you get why people get a little vindictive on Howard if that's how they really are treated whenever they do leave the show after contributing so much. So yeah, I don't know. I don't see myself ever like being that way, but yeah, it's I'm sure it's a weird feeling being a part of something for so long and then feeling like they just kind of pushed you overboard.
Yeah. So Howard 100 News basically got swept under the rug. They made no announcement about it whatsoever. Lisa G, John Lieberman, there were some other members laid off, and
Sauer. What's his name?
Oh yeah, you're right. Who is that?
Oh, Mike.
I can picture him.
Mike.
Sauer. You're going to go to jail for this.
Sauer.
I remember. Steve Langford's got a huge penis. Steve Langford. Huge penis.
Sauer, I want you to go to jail for this. I can't get over. That was the best.
But all gone.
Yeah.
And never mentioned again. I mean, why couldn't you just say, hey, we decided to go a different direction. We appreciate your work.
Yeah, I mean,
those guys gave some good work.
They did good work. And it's like, yeah, it is weird that they're not mentioned. I
guess like Saturday Night Live's not going to mention last year's cast.
Exactly. True. Yeah, I was actually just going to bring up that point. Like, it's like, on any other show, do they really bring up people that depart and leave? But, the Howard Stern show is very different than those shows in the sense that, like, their whole show isn't talking about the cast. You know what I mean? And, like, how they interact with one another.
Yeah, and you start to kind of fall in love with the characters and the people.
Sure. It's more. I would more play it towards like, okay, you're watching a show, Seinfeld or Friends, and all of a sudden George just isn't in the next season, and you're like, oh, what happened to George? You know what I mean? Like, we're just not going to talk about it.
Or they just get an actor that somewhat looks like him.
Somewhat looks like him. It's like, yeah, exactly. Where it's like, okay, can we not address the fucking elephant in the room? But yeah, I don't know. So that part's a little weird. So to answer that question though, I don't know. I can't. Benjy lasted this long, fucking up and doing as many bits and doing all that shit that he's done. I can't, unless there's like a royal fuck up or like a big event that causes Benjy to be fired, I don't see him just being fired out of the blue. But what do you think Benjy's thinking of all this? Do you think that he feels that he's not contributing enough anymore and he's starting to feel that insecurity, so he's starting to act out a little bit more? Do you think that he doesn't see any of this and that we're and he's just kind of doing his thing and he's not really thinking too much into it at all? What do you think his psyche is like during these last few years?
I think this is a classic case of this is the only world that he knows, and he started out as an intern, and so many people from the outside world are saying, you don't know how good you have it. Look at your schedule. Your schedule's unbelievable. Howard treats you great. You're on the most successful radio show of all time. Why would you not just show up early? Why would you not go to every meeting? If I were you, I would do that. But this is also a guy that's been in that position for 20 years. And I'm not justifying his actions, but in his mind, this is kind of like old news to him. So in his mind, maybe I should be writing movie scripts. I should be writing more TV. I should be piloting things. I should be producing things. And maybe he makes no effort whatsoever, and he'll do shitty Facebook Live videos and try to produce his own things, and they don't exactly hit with their own audience outside of the show playing them, and everyone laughs at how bad they are. But maybe it's just human nature. It's like growing up rich. You grow up rich, yeah, when you turn 16 and you get an amazing car, it's cool, but shit, I grew up rich. If you grow up poor, you'd appreciate it a lot more.
Sure.
So maybe he just doesn't appreciate it. I think that's really what it is. And I think all these callers call in, oh, I'm a truck driver, I'm on the road 80 hours a week. But that just doesn't get through to him, because in his mind, that's just what his job is. He gets paid a lot of money. He doesn't work a lot. He dates girls out of his range. That was the other great thing. He used to tell awesome stories about these crazy New York City, and this is before even Tinder and all that. He'd be on Craigslist and Backpage, all these crazy websites,
weird fucking threesome scenarios.
Just walking into darkly lit rooms where you can barely see anything, and God knows what's happening. And Howard loved that, and he was bringing that perspective in. And now his perspective is just dull. It's just not. And I don't mean to pile on just because everyone else is. And I'm not saying that the guy should lose his job. I'm not rooting for that. But he just really hasn't brought that freshness in a long time. And I think that's his energy that he's bringing. He's not coming to work every day saying, holy shit, I'm working for one of the best shows of all time. Not just a radio show, but... And maybe he's going to end up getting laid off and realize it. Or Howard's going to retire at most 5 years from now. That's the maximum we're going to get.
Sure.
And then what?
Right. Well,
he's not going to be able to work 12 hours making a shitload of money being on a global show. So he's going to have a harsh reality waiting for him. I was just going to
say, like, the work output he's going to have to do whenever he gets back into reality is going to just be a complete culture shock for him. And I don't think that he has the mental capacity to really handle it. I think that it would just be... I mean, here's another thing. Benji's no fucking spring chicken. We don't know exactly how old... That's a question for you. How the fuck old is Benji? Nobody knows.
52 years old, according to my research, but...
According to him, he's
But who
49,
knows what he entered in there.
Right. So he could be older than that. He says, like, there's things that says he's 48. Just even this past LA trip, he wouldn't... There was rumors that he didn't want Mehmet to go with him because he didn't want Mehmet to see his actual birthday on his license or on his passport, whatever was going to be on, the ticket. So... He's a fucking weirdo, but the point being, he's not some young guy that can just adapt to, like you said, like he's not going to just adapt to a new, work ethic. Can't teach an old dog new tricks, like a type of thing. You know what I mean? So when Howard retires, or if he is let go before that, Benji trying to find another job with this type of casual, work ethic, it's not going to fly. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and he hasn't exactly built up some huge following for himself, and he's had the opportunity to. He has, if he wanted to, he could use equipment, he could use producers, directors, and he just puts minimal effort in the show and seems like putting minimal effort in his outside life to grow his career outside of the show. So, Benji, we wish you luck, but... maybe some lean years ahead for you, bub.
Yeah. Benji, if you ever listen to this, we'd love to talk to you, and maybe we are completely off base. Maybe you have this all thought out, and maybe you contribute a lot more than we even know about. Feel free to contact us. We'd love to talk to you, sir.
Maybe you want to be the third member of the Hey Now Howard podcast.
Yeah, quit, man. It's not a good job anyways. Just quit and join us. We're making tons of money over here, man.
We have about the same amount of listeners.
Yeah. Same amount. We make almost as much as Howard at this point, so come on over. We'll split a little bit with you.
Yeah, we're close. We're nearly on pace to make what Howard makes in 2019. Just a few dollars.
We should eclipse him by 2020, coming up here in a few months, so looking forward to that.
On pace. And that's all thanks to you. And thanks for stopping by this episode of the Hey Now Howard podcast. My name is Daniel Coyne.
And my name is Tyler Cortad. Hit him with the high.
This is beat up.
Bye for now.
Bad as can, he knows he's the best.